Good evening. I'm Richard Sommer, the Dean of the Daniels Faculty, and it's my pleasure to welcome you to this year's Kohn Shnier Architects Lecture and to introduce you to tonight's speaker, Carla Juacaba. But before I introduce tonight's speaker, I have one short announcement concerning an upcoming event. The week after next, Thursday, February 12th, hopefully you'll join us for our next four event called At Home, Architecture Inside Out. The graphic novelist Richard McGuire, author of the acclaimed book Here, which I have right here, very beautiful book. And we'll join Daniel Aubert, co-creator of the book Thanks for the View, Mr. Mies, about life in Lafayette Park, Detroit. We're going to explore how the architecture of domesticity and depictions of the home reveal the changing ways in which our private and public lives play out today in the space of the city. So they'll be making presentations, and Robert Levitt of our faculty and myself will be moderating a discussion with them following. And that will take place, as all our four are due, at the larger venue of the Elizabeth Bader Theater, and tickets are available on Eventbrite. So I encourage all of you to come and to encourage your friends and colleagues. Now on to tonight's lecture, which has been made possible through the generous support of John Shnier of Kohn Shnier Architects. John is a long-standing member of the Daniels faculty, and I imagine is well known to many in attendance, especially our students. He's also a partner, along with Marty Kohn of Kohn Shnier Architects, a diverse practice engaged in the larger design community here in Toronto. Kohn Schnier's designs and commissions have won many, many awards over the years, all the way back actually to John Shnier winning the first Canadian Prix de Rome Prize in architecture. John has generously supported the Daniels faculty over many years with the goal of contributing to initiatives that, quote, make for a richer learning experience for both students and colleagues, end quote. Previous Kohn Shnier Architects lectures have featured David Van Severen from the firm Office, Kirsten Geers David Van Severen of Brussels, and Antoine Garcia Abril from Ensemble Studio in Madrid. So please join me in thanking John for his generous contributions to both the university and this evening's lecture in particular. So the Kohn Shnier Architects Lecture was created to present an architect who was emerging as a strong influence in their cultural milieu and whose practice can be seen as a balance of professional, educational, experimental, and community contributions. And tonight's speaker, Carla Juacaba, beautifully exemplifies the combined ambitions of this endowed lecture. She has been described as, quote, a complete architect who embraces all aspects of context, environment, nature, programmatic parameters, and materials with each commission. These words were written by the jury for ArchVision's International Prize for Women in Architecture when Carla was the inaugural winner of this prize just 2 years ago in 2013. The international jury of leading designers and architects who chose her for the ArchVision Prize chose Carla from a shortlist of 19 finalists from 15 different countries. Carla's work can be understood within what has been almost a century of modernist innovation in Brazil. In its vitality, boldness, and tectonic clarity, and actually continuity of development, Brazilian modernism and modern architecture is unique in the world. Many people have heard of Oscar Niemeyer, who died only recently at the age of 102, but his reputation sometimes cast a shadow on many other great modern architects and works of modern architecture that have come out of the Brazilian cities and landscapes. If you don't know the bold, stark works of Paulo Mendes Hacha, or more recently, the design for clinics by João Figueiras, I think I got it right, Figueiras, which set the bar very high for a beautiful and affordable mode of sustainability, I would recommend you have a look at them. For me, more than even Niemeyer and these others, the work of the late Lina Babardi stands out for her bold, original vision, which drew on the sophistication of early modern Italian architecture, but embraced the politics, landscape, and materiality of a new world. I see Carla's work in this light, direct in the way it confronts a program with a landscape, whether it be for a house or a temporary exhibition pavilion. Each of her projects makes use of certain basic architectural instruments, load-bearing walls, spanning steel, glass as a shield, all composed to measure light, air, and shelter. Carla's own past experience includes working while still a student with the architect Gisela Magalhães, a contemporary of Oscar Niemeyer, on exhibitions related to the Brazilian native arts and historical museums. Upon graduation, she also worked with the architect Mario Fraga on a project called the Atelier House. The works that have brought Carla to our attention include Humanidad, which I think is the image up here, a large experimental exhibition pavilion designed for the Rio +20 United Nations Conference on Copacabana Beach, which Carla designed in conjunction with the art director Bia Lessa, and Rio Bonito House, a weekend home in Rio de Janeiro, two projects I'm hoping we'll see tonight. In addition to her practice, Carla is active in teaching as well as research studies, lectures, competitions, exhibitions, and various Biennale events. Her academic affiliations include one with the Pontifical Catholic University of Rio de Janeiro. For me, and I hope for you, it will be a great treat to see a young architect who has so far accomplished a number of singularly impressive projects, but whose vision promises so much more for the future. So please welcome me in joining Carla Juaçaba to the podium.
Thank you. Thank you for the invitation and for your presence too. I'll show you first the temporary works. How do I change? I did work with, and I will still work with exhibition design, temporary works, and I will begin with that. The first one it's not an architecture work, it's an installation in Mexico City. The name is Isostasy. It's a place in Mexico City for, it's like a art gallery for architects, where you can express yourself, you can show a work, you can do whatever you want. So I decided to construct this object. This is the gallery. There's those two with two windows, and you can enter also to see the object. And this is the plane. And this object is the gallery has 9 square meters, and this object it's made of magnets, golden guitar strings, marbles, brass profiles with 2.40 meters, rubber washer, and pieces of lead. And it's an object that pretends to be a reflection about the act of construction and about the probity of the materials when they brought together. It is a tectonic construction, and those are 4 structural situations. And on one of them is the support system of the engineer Gerber. This is the diagram of the 4 situations. And this is the poster. And this is one of the examples. This object, the golden strings and marbles are stabilized by the magnets, but with a high level of entropy to keep it in this state. It appears to be quiet and calm in its rest, but there is an immense effort on this object to keep it in this state. Isostasy is a structural system and equilibrium. Isostatic could have been the name, but I didn't like the sound. When I presented this object to Frampton, he said he heard ecstasy, not isostasy. Isostasy is the noun of isostatic. It's an object that pretends to be a metaphor of any construction in any scale. The marble can be a junction, the rubber washer can be a connection of a bridge. And although the marbles are not a knot, it is also a metaphor of the oldest technical symbol that connects two elements. This is, since it was very difficult to handle and to construct this object, I invited a physicist to do a calculus, and he did the sum of two equations, static and magnetism. But the calculus arrived after everything was done. But it was very precise. We needed to know the distance between the magnets, and it was 5 centimeters. And it was exactly that, the reality. But at the end, he wrote, this is only a calculus. It might not match to the reality, but it did perfectly. And it's an object that does not want only to expose an idea. It wants to be beautiful because it's made of beautiful parts. The golden guitars is beautiful. The marble and the brass profiles are beautiful, as well as the leads. The problem of this object that it was made in Mexico, and after 1 month, the earthquake happens and everything falls down and broke. But I couldn't think about this. We don't have this in Brazil, so. And I want to say that this object was very inspired by the book of Frampton, Studies in Tectonic Culture. It's a passionate book about the art of construction. Unfortunately, I could tell him that. Also, it's very hard to photograph. And okay, this is the pavilion. This is funny. They're trying to figure out how everything was possible. And this is the Pavilion Humanidade, made for the Rio +20. It's a temporary building. It was constructed. The construction lasts 4 months, and and open for the public only 2 weeks. And this is Rio, and the pavilion is. I don't know if it works. Oh. It's exactly here at the end of Copacabana Beach, and Copacabana is in Brazil is the stage of Brazil where all the manifestation and events happens. There is always in Copacabana, anytime you go, a scaffold structure being dismantled or under construction over the sand and over the headland too. And that's what I found when I visited the fort. A plastic tent over scaffold structure. That's what they do twice a year for the events that happen there. And they wanted to do this event inside this plastic tent with air conditioner. And they invited this exhibition designer, BLS, to do it. And she said, how come we're going to do an exhibition about the health of the planet inside a plastic tent with air conditioner? And she refused completely and began to look for an architect to do it. She first invited Paulo Mendes da Rocha, but fortunately he was occupied, he was busy. And Bia and Paulo Mendes did a few scenographies for her theater, but it's never published, I don't know why, but very interesting ones. Then she called me looking for an architect that works with sustainability, and I told her that such thing doesn't exist. And we began to visit the site, and we found that. And what I proposed was to continue those existing walls with 5 meters high by 170 meters. And the first question was how long they needed to construct that base, what's the capacity of load of that base, and then everything was discussed with the engineer, and it was really easy to do it and fast. And I think those perceptions are something from our time to perceive of what we have in hands to do. I mean, in Latin America, we have this characteristic. I mean, if you go to Paraguay, obviously they're going to construct a brick, and because they only have this. If you go to Copacabana, you have scaffold everywhere. So this perceiving what you where you are, this perception begin to generate other kind of projects, I think. The exhibition rooms were the support of those walls. And this is only to say that about the ephemeros, the idea of the ephemeros, that is not our idea, it is an Oriental idea, also Indian. And this pavilion has this monumental Occidental image, but the construction but it is constructed with an Oriental material. The scaffold is made of bamboo until today. So it's curious to propose an Occidental image, but with an Oriental material. It's hard, I think today it's hard to propose an ephemeral construction made of concrete, for example, like Paulo Mendes da Rocha did in Japan in the 70s, which was a fantastic building, but I think today our idea of ecology, our ecosophy doesn't permit that anymore. Then it's pleasant to think that a construction, Western construction of this size had dissipated. This is the final section. There was a program that I had to follow, but the only thing I added besides the program was this room for nothing, only to see to stay here on this stair and see the view. That was the only empty space. So it is a rigid it is an open structure, rigid in one direction, but open in the other one. And it accepted programmatic instability. I mean, while we were constructing, we were deciding what to do. It's very irresponsible and very Brazilian way of doing things. And I think we just added the connections, those in red, no matter where. I mean, nothing matters, everything fits on that idea. I said, you can give me anything as a program because everything fits. So there was no study of form. The arrangement of the volumes between the walls could be many and the design would be the same. Also, there was not much to think about the structure. We had have only one type of beam with 75 centimeters that reached 14 meters of vane, and the other one had 2 meters 20 of height that reached 24 meters. And this is the foundation. It's also pleasant to say this is the foundation because such a heavy building with 500,000 tons didn't do anything with the ground, just touched the ground. That's nice to say. And this is all the process that was fascinated all the process, and also for the city, people didn't knew about this and asked about what is happening. And the newspaper was there is only one newspaper in Rio. The newspaper was against this project, so for 6 months nobody knew about what was happening there. Only asking in the streets. And after everything was done, an old woman told me, everything looks very good, but when are they going to take out the scaffold so we can see the building? I think constructing those 5 immense walls with 170 meters by 20 meters high, with 5 meters 40 between them, was really fascinating, and the material also was fascinating. The scaffold, I think, it's a fantasy of the ethereal, and if it's true that material has desire, I think the scaffold has in itself a desire of absence. I had to do once a model of this project, and I decided to do the walls with acrylic. I mean, I think there's the material has this absence, although it's there, and and I began to hear many times that finally someone did what Cedric Price wanted to do. And I think the presence of the history is there, but with another intention, and desires. And I would like to talk about those intentions. I think Cedric Price invented an image of the future, a rhetorical image of idea of progress. Following that, the high-tech had the same rhetorical, building very expensive artifacts to justify it. But I think we are in a different moment. It would be an absurd today to create any rhetorical image of any ecological idea. We have at this moment a complete bound and connection to a reality, an economical reality, geographical and physical reality. And this image already exists when I visit the site. I mean, those corridors between the walls were already beautiful like that. And the TV finally announced that it was free to enter. And then the next day, there was a line of 1 kilometer. And 200,000 people visited the building during those 2 weeks. And those are the final images. And those beams on the top, I didn't want them to exist, but it was a discussion with the engineer. I said, I want them to arrive on the top and don't see anything. And he said, it's okay, it might shake a little bit and people will be afraid, but, and I said, no, do whatever you want. And then he put all those beams. And we are, as you can see, responsible like this, deciding things like this. So it's, I should be ashamed to say these things, but. And this is the center of the building, with the center of the humanity, that is the library, and they invited all the intellectuals from Brazil to choose the best books that are there. And this is for me the best view. This is the view from Ipanema, where you don't see any city, you just see an object and the nature. And this is a really small room for a temporary art exhibition, Brazilian art. It is a suspended perimeter wall that defines a place and is a support for the children's drawings. And this idea came from a talk with Paulo Mendes da Rocha, that he described a house that the children could enter for any side and the doors were only for the grown-up. I never saw this house, but this place is part of his description. And 1 month after that, it was full of drawing. And then that's what I still do. It's work with temporary exhibitions, and this is in the Museum of Modern Art in Rio. It's about the Brazilian jewelry, and those few suspended transparent frames are over pieces of broken glass. And I think scenography is very different from architecture. You have to invent a little story to create an image. In this case, the story was the gemstone came from the water, from the act of prospecting. The broken glass represents crystallized water, where all the raw materials come from. On the other hand, architecture is so different from these stories. I think it has to be so different that it has to respond to this, to a reality that it is subjected. And this is a few houses, and then I'll show you at the end the houses that I'm working on that are under construction at this moment. This is the Rio Bonito, and this 100 meters means that I construct first the Rio Bonito house, and then 100 meters above, after, 3 years after the first one, I constructed another one. And I realized that the conditions were completely different. And then the idea of sustainability and then our sensitive can change in 100 meters. And I was very impressed with that, because the first one is next to this river. And the first question that it's very intense nature, very intense sun, rain, humid, everything, and sound of this river too. And the first question was how to handle this much intensity. And I thought it could not be anything light and delicate, that it wouldn't last too long. And it was, and I proposed those portent walls with 4 beams with 12 meters each, and the portent walls has 1 meter 10. And the beams entered 1 meter inside the stone walls on each side. And Frampton asked, what did you do with this 10 centimeter? If you entered 1 meter, and I closed with the stone, and he didn't like this. And I was trying to understand why he didn't like this. Because it's about the connection, it's about the passage of the material, of the iron beam to the stone. I mean, there's an horizontal concrete box inside the wall, and I asked him, what if I have shown this concrete horizontal box? And he said that would be better, but I don't think he likes this project. So anyway, and this is a book that was made by the University of Texas at Austin. It is part of a duograph series about each country in Latin America, and I'm next to, in this book, to a house of Angelo Bucci, that's a great architect from São Paulo and friend. And I'm showing this book also because of a little story. They asked me, of course, it's a very special book. I mean, they went to visit the site and everything, and they asked me for all the drawings, and I didn't have any drawings. And I didn't know how to say that I didn't have any drawings. And I began to draw the drawings that never exist. And now I can tell them, but at the moment I couldn't. And it made me think about the real relation between the drawings and the construction. In this case, I think it's a simple construction. The stereotomic masonry is the most primitive and simple construction. So it's so easy to communicate this construction that doesn't need a drawing. So this is the drawings that never existed. And this is Jabba, the person that did with me and on the site and the entire work. And then this other house, the Minimal House, that I call Minimal House, above 100 meters, has 24 square meters. And I realized that 24 square meters is a huge space. It could have been less than that. I think the challenge of this is the horizontal box that I was talking about. This is the house minimum, and 24 square meters. And I think the challenge of creating those small spaces is about questioning what we really need to live. And everything looks superfluous after that, because you think about what you really need. And the perception of the site is completely different. The soil is dry, and it's closest to the sun. Very, very different from the 100 meters from close to the river. We see how irresponsible we are. We don't need anything to protect and to fall down. It's just, I'm sure you have much more rules to construct here. And this is a house in Rio, in the city of Rio, in this perimeter, in this continuous border that happens in Rio between the nature and the city. And the centenary trees were the only pre-existence of the site. They're huge and beautiful. And it was really hard to find a place to do the house. And I wanted to design a house with less presence. And Álvaro Siza said that sometimes construct is to destroy. And after that, also Frampton told me that I should study the Japanese culture, no Japanese culture, that the name is Shanti, that they do believe that something always exists. There's always a pre-existence. So finally, the house cuts the terrain in two, and the less presence that I was looking for had to be very incisive. And this is only a picture of Lucio Fontana that, with this cut, with this gesture, that he doesn't need too much to do something. And also the theater of Peterbrook that has always, it's a theater that I really like to pay attention on the scenography, because he never needs too much to communicate. I mean, two pieces of bamboo, he communicates a lot. And this is the reference of Lucio Fontana, this cut in the ceiling. And this is the association I do with this Mandan house, American Indian house, it's not only the support of a porticos that supports the roof, but it's the light. I mean, this opening is quite timeless, ancestral. It's part of many cultures. This small cut to bring the light. Here you can see the four porticos and the roof. I think there's really nothing new in this house. We know that the presence of the modernism is there, but added to that, there's a roof. Not a roof. It's let's say it's 1.5 meters to each side to protect from the rain. So in our climate, it's fantastic to open the window when it's raining, not close the window. And the name, House Varanda, is because in Brazil we don't have a house without a balcony. I think it's balcony, the name. And this one is in the center of the terrain. I think it already is lived as a balcony. So it is, you don't need one. It is already one. The center is the living room, and the extremity, the room. This is the first house I did, the house atelier, with these panels made with taquara, that is a material made of bamboo, usually used in the old farms for the roofs in Brazil. So it's very flexible. I had to sew. There's an iron net inside that I had to sew this double side taquara. And it also has this very related to the topography. I didn't want to move so much the terrain, and I think in Rio, the nature is so powerful that you have to, if you distract for a while, just come inside and the tubes and the structure and everything. So this image, this final image, you can see the nature coming inside. So you have to control that all the time. And those are the house under construction at this moment. House Posse is one. It is a site like this, with full of farmyards or coral like this. And I asked him if I could do a coral house for him, and he said more closed as the farmyards or coral. I don't know the name. And then it's very. This is the drawing of the foundation. It's very graphic, but also very tectonic. Those walls in the perimeter just support a perimeter of beam, and then again the roof. So it's 2 times structure. This is a more closed house because I feel that I had to protect from this site that's full of animals, and each space has a veranda balcony. And again, in the roof, there's a cross made of an iron beam, and then again there's portent walls to elevate the center. Those are the facades. The model. And as you can see, the bearing walls. And this is the construction. It's very beautiful when the walls are the foundation. So the construction is beautiful since the beginning. It's clear and easy to do it too. And this is a house inside the city of Rio again. And this is the construction already, and this picture is only to see the surrounding kinds of house. And I feel that I had to protect from those windows and this kind of architecture too. So we have those lines are steel beams, 3 meters high, and then concrete beams over the steel beams. And this red line, it's like a suspended perimeter to protect from the neighbor, and to create an inside atmosphere. It is made of hollow concrete blocks. And this is the second floor, the 5 rooms. And this is downstairs with the living room downstairs and kitchen and everything. This is the frontal facade with this element that goes all around the. And this is the project that I've been working for 2 years. and it will be the first palliative care hospital in Brazil for the Cancer Foundation. It's also exactly in this perimeter between nature and the city that this time very accentuated. This is a preserved area, and the other side there are factories and everything, so it's very accentuated, this difference. And the site it's quite similar to Varanda House. It's close to with this huge trees this drawing was only to show that the trees were the first spatial coordinate for the project. And this is, again, concrete beams, 3.7 meters higher than the streets. The project's almost entire in the same level to facilitate the mobility of the patients. We don't have this program in Brazil yet, so we don't have hospice, so I had to do with the legislation of hospital, which made everything more difficult, and we have to construct spaces that are not needed for hospital. So it was a very hard process between of a lot of bureaucracy too. And over the concrete beams, we have these points in red and blue are pillars of iron that I moved many times because the program moved many times. So I had, in a way, freedom. I had, as the pavilion Humanidade, I had a rigid construction in one direction, but in the other one, it was very flexible. So I did move many times those points in reds. And in blue, it's to support of this hollow glass blocks that I will show you. The picture is something that we use a lot in Brazil. And this is the project, the level 370, because the level 0 from the street is only technical floor. And the main entrances, so the facade is only ramps, and there's a sequence of walls with this hollow glass block. In the center is the only moment that I have a connection from the building to the streets. I mean, the facade is really a wall. See, this is the entrance, and there's a coffee there. There's the directory parts, the family room, nursing. Here's the daycare area, the inpatient rooms, this emergency rooms, and upstairs the auditorium and library, because they wanted this to be an example that would be the first one. So it would be, they wanted to be very visited and studied. And they asked me for spaces for nothing. I mean, there were two requests from the doctors. Don't do large views, because the inpatients don't like large views to the nature or the sea or whatever. So we have small spaces, small gardens, and do also a lot of spaces of pose, places for pose, for nothing. And downstairs, the level 0 is the only technical floor. So this is the structure. This is the beam, the first drawing with the concrete beams, and those are the pillars that changed many times of the position. And this is laminated wood, but unfortunately it was not possible to use because we cannot use wood in hospitals in Brazil, so they just asked me to take it out, and it had a structural function, and it just lost its function. This is the hollow glass blocks in this size, and this is to show that everything is almost on this level, and the gardens accessed from here, the installations from downstairs. So to make it easier. This is the front of view with this connection in the center. And this is to end. It's my office that changes a lot. It can be and can have 6 people for the hospital, and now I have only 1 student, and it's just flexible as it has to be. This is with them. Thank you so much. If you have any questions, yes.
Hi. I'm just going to ask a quick question about flexibility. It seems like that was a consideration that was really important for at least that first pavilion project, where the boxes could float in different locations and could move around. And with regard to how construction works in Brazil, do you think that that sort of motive of using scaffolding and being very flexible to its location is something that could have potential benefits for, outside of, say, high architecture with maybe sort of smaller scale, affordable housing for, a climate that's conducive to scaffold type construction?
Well, I never saw any other experience with scaffold before in Brazil.
No.
But this open structure that I said, it's just the way the walls were arranged, and also this crazy process of deciding while we were constructing where to put the boxes. But it was important in this case, such as the hospital. I mean, the positions. There is a flexibility over a grid, but there is a flexibility that was needed in both cases. So.
Well, I don't know, maybe my question is much more cultural question, but I was wondering how you provide some sort of privacy or safety for the building that you just showed, the building which had 2 stones wall and the bed was in the middle. I don't know, I'm not that much familiar with Brazilian culture. I don't know if you do have many kind of housing like this, and if it's kind of like safe to have this kind of housing and privacy.
But what kind of safety? During the process of construction or after?
No, after, I mean.
I know we don't think about this. It's true. Sorry.
Hi, I was wondering, this may be sort of technical, public projects in Brazil, I noticed you showed a lot of houses. Is it difficult for younger architects to get actual public projects, like a...
Yes. I think there's a lot of small offices doing housing all over Latin America, not only Brazil. I think it's a way of, we found that to be experimental thing, it's a chance that we have to work. So, and for public projects, I think more in São Paulo there's public possibilities of work. But if you see in general Latin America, you see a lot of housing projects. I mean,
So it's a different path or a different the way in which public projects or large-scale urban buildings, the way in which large-scale projects or urban buildings are commissioned goes through a whole different kind of business culture and a different kind of access. So there are different levels or different kinds of practice.
Yes, I think so. I think in São Paulo, from 10 years from now, there's a change in this aspect. I mean, there are young offices doing public projects, but it's very new. Yes. And even Paulo, for example, Paulo never did work in Rio. He doesn't have one work, so it's hard for him to. I mean, it's a better moment, I think, for him too. He never had so many projects that he's doing at this moment. I mean, at the same time. So it's a better moment. We have to profit because we don't know how long it will stay like that. So because it's so stable, everything. So.
Any other questions? Okay, well, thank you very much.
Thank you.